Hi guys, this is Greg with Walnut Ridge Family RV Sales here in Memphis, Indiana. Today we're going to talk about hooking up your fifth wheel and the proper ways of doing it. The first thing and most important thing is to make sure that your camper is at the appropriate height before you go ahead and back up and get your hitch hooked up. So typically what I do, if after you've done it for quite a long time on the same trailer, you'll have a pretty good idea just looking at the camper if it's in the rough spot of where it needs to be. But if not, what you can do is go ahead and let your tailgate down, back up into where you're a foot or two away, and then as you look at it, it's hard to tell on the camera, but the plate here of the hitch is just slightly lower than the kingpin on the trailer. So no matter if you have a Demco Recon like we have here or any of the other brands, most of them will have a little bit of tilt in the head, and so it's at a little bit of a downward slope here. So when you go back into it, it'll hit right underneath the kingpin, and then onto the hitch itself. And then as you back up more, it will level out as it draws itself together, and then of course it'll lock. You can't have it too high or the coupler won't lock into place correctly, and you can't have it too low or obviously you're just going to hit the kingpin and knock the trailer back. So you have to try to find the right height, and sometimes you can go ahead and back up more, get it right next to it, and then you know that, okay, this is too low or this is too high, and you could lower it to wherever you need to be. And we may get that when I go to back up here in a second. We might have to adjust it a little bit. So get your height set. I always recommend that you get a Teflon disc that goes underneath the hitch of the kingpin itself. That way you don't have to grease it up. It's a lot easier, cleaner, and they work just as well, if not better. It's a cheap way to keep up on the hitch, and just maintenance wise, not have to grease it all the time. So you would start off by raising and lowering however your front jacks raise or lower, whether it has a leveling system, an LCI, hydraulics, electric, or just single up and down buttons like this one has, and get it to what looks like the appropriate height if I'm looking at it from here. You'll want to pull out your lock. Now some of them have automatic, so you just back up into it and it'll push it open. I don't usually like doing that. If it can lock back, I prefer to do it this way, just to, I figure, less wear and tear. But what we'll do now is I'll go ahead, back up into it, and we'll see exactly where we're at. As you can see, the bottom of the hitch, or really that Teflon disc, is touching the base of the head here, and it gave a little bit of a tilt, so it tilted it forward a little bit. You're not digging the metal or the steel into the steel yet, so it's right at the right height. Your coupler itself isn't hitting the frame of the hitch, so we should be good now to just go ahead and back all the way in. Just like that. As you can see, you have a little bit of a gap here. That's good. That's what you want. That's what you want to see when you go to take it off. So I'm not going to go all the way, but we'll put some weight onto it. Of course, you want to make sure that the lock did lock itself in. That's usually an audible cue that you can hear when you back up into it all the way. Because if you do go, if you go too high, usually not too low, but too high, it won't go all the way in. Now, it may start to retract, but if you can't put whatever locking mechanism your brand of hitch has, if you can't put its pin through, then you know that it's not all the way set. So that's in there, the pin's in there. Make sure that you set the pin before you go lowering or raising up your legs. That way, just in case something happens, you know, the locking arm doesn't come out on you. So we've put a decent amount of its weight on there, not all of it. There we go. So that's got majority weight. So now, if we were going to be traveling, we'd hook up our breakaway cable. I typically want to put a carabiner on this somewhere and then hook it to the truck, maybe to the rails of the bed. Some people will put them around the handle. That's not the most secure thing, but you can do it. Put it back here and then throw the pin through it. But I would get a separate carabiner. If for some reason the hitch ever came off and the trailer started rolling away, it will pull this cable, lock the brakes up on the trailer. That way it doesn't keep following you into traffic, and hopefully it stops safely. You'll want to hook in your 7-way cable, whether you have an in-bed 7-way or over the tailgate. It'll supply your lights and everything. Throw that over there. Now we're going to pretend that we've just unhooked and we're ready to unhook it all the way. I'll extend my legs however they extend. And then what I do is I sit and I watch between the two plates, and the truck will start to rise, and then eventually you'll see the gap between the two plates come up. Now, when you have a Teflon disc on there, it's a little harder to see than if you're just straight metal to metal. You'll see that gap come up. And from where I was from, I couldn't see it all the way, but most of the time you can. So I'm going to lower it back down because you don't want to go too high. You want to make sure that you hit it as soon as you see it lift away, and then you can pull your locking arm. Make sure that everything's out of the way and unplugged. Perfect example. Unlock it. I'm going to go behind you. We're still just a little bit too high. There we go. There we go. And that's pretty much it. And you can see the hitch is pretty much back to where it was. I was still a little high when I took off because I couldn't see the gap all the way that I had. So if when you start to pull away, if you feel any kind of struggle or it snugs or the kingpin hitch locks back, then usually you're up too high or maybe not high enough. That's the worst thing. You obviously don't want to pull away when the legs are not touching the ground or really barely there, because then if it does pull out, if you chalk your wheels and you just drive out from underneath it, it's going to drop. So always make sure that you raise it up, get that little bit of a 1/4 inch of a gap, and then you should be safe to go ahead and pull out. Make sure your breakaway cable's unhooked, your 7-way's unhooked, and then you can go ahead and drive away. And that's pretty much it on hooking up a 5th wheel. We may do a travel trailer next time. There's so many different hitches. We'll show the new hitches that we Walnut Ridge in general are going to be carrying from Blue Ox, and we'll see you next week.